In this video, I'm going to show you what you need to know to choose a camera for live streaming. Hello, I'm Stephen Ballast. Welcome to my channel where I explore worship technology solutions. If you're looking to start streaming, one of the first questions you'll ask is, what camera should I get? I'm going to show you what you need to look for in a camera for live streaming, and then I'm also going to make some recommendations. For an entry-level camera when you're just getting started with live streaming, first, you'll need a camera that has a clean HDMI output. That means you can clear all the text information that shows up on the camera's screen off of the HDMI output. I think the Canon Xf cameras, specifically the R600, 700, or 800, are a great place to start streaming, and I highly recommend them. I have had several people ask me how to clear the display off of these cameras, because by default the camera does show the text on the HDMI. On the Xf cameras, first go into the menu and select the Other Settings menu, and then in the center tab you'll see Output On-Screen Displays. Turn that to off and you'll have a clean display out through the HDMI. Another feature your camera will need for live streaming is an external audio input. The reason for that is if you're just running one camera without a switcher and you send your audio into your computer through some other device and combine it in your streaming software, most likely the audio is going to be out of sync. The processing times in the audio and video interfaces and drivers will be different, causing the audio to be out of sync. And these differences can also build up over time, so you'll get more out of sync the longer you stream. The solution is to run the audio into your camera through its mic input, and then the audio and video are coming into your computer through the same device and they'll be in sync. A lot of people tell me that they need a better camera than this. I mean, it's only a $200 camera, how good can it be, right? My response is to ask them why. What are you hoping to achieve with a more expensive camera? I'll usually hear something like, I don't have good lighting so we need a better camera. Well, the reality is, spending more on a camera is just going to show your poor lighting better. A lot of salesmen won't tell you this because they want to sell you a more expensive camera. But you'd really have to spend a whole lot of money before you actually get a camera that can deal with low lighting and wide dynamic range. And then when you start to think about multiplying that across several cameras for a multi-camera setup, it really becomes crazy. So the cheapest way to deal with bad lighting is to fix your lighting. A few par cans can create a nice even wash of light across your stage, and that's going to be a whole lot cheaper and will give actual results compared to just spending more on the camera. Also, another thing to consider is if you get a more expensive camera for $1,200, $1,600, you've got one camera and that's it. I think you can create a much more engaging experience for your viewers by getting several of these and a switcher and being able to change up your angles and zoom in on things, all for the same cost as that one camera. So you may ask, when do I need to spend more on a camera? You should always base your camera decision on your workflow and what your requirements are. And for me, the requirement that dictates the next step up in cameras is when you need to have a remote control on the handle of your tripod so an operator can control zoom and focus. Also, usually at this point, you'll want to have an external monitor for your operator. With those requirements, you've outgrown the Canon Xf line, and you'll need to look at something like the Canon Xf or Xf. These cameras add link connections that allow for remote controls, and the Xf has an SDI output so you can start to run your cameras further away from your computer or switcher without using HDMI to SDI converters. And after that, the next functional requirement is if you need remote control of your camera from your control room using a CCU or camera control unit. At that point, you're looking at a camera like the Canon Xf 200. You'll notice a trend here. I've stayed with Canon cameras all throughout. The reason is I found it's easiest to get your cameras to match color and generally how they look if you stick with the same brand of camera. So if you start out with a Xf camera and later add an Xf, you can still use your Xf cameras, and if they are set up correctly, when you intercut between them, they will match each other much better than if you're intermixing with Sony or Panasonic cameras. So my recommendation would be that once you start down a brand path, stick with it. I'm not necessarily advocating that Canon is better, although I do think they've nailed it with the features and price point of their entry-level camera, the R800. Each camera manufacturer is going to have a similar path of feature sets, and while there's a whole bunch of other marketing language, resolution, recording codecs, this, that, and the other, for streaming, most of those things don't matter, and you'll find cameras pretty well tiered across these three sets of features: entry-level cameras, link control and SDI outputs, and then finally remote CCU control. Now there's a whole other set of cameras that I've completely left out of this discussion, and those are PTZ or pan and tilt zoom cameras. They are popular because they don't require an operator at the camera, and one person can control several of them remotely. But I'm not as excited about PTZ cameras for people starting out, and here's why. There are very few options out there that provide both a good-looking HD image and SDI outputs that are reasonably priced. Also, the control system adds a level of complexity to the setup and installation. That said, the best option I think right now is the PTZ Optics Gen 2 SDI camera. So if you are really sold on getting PTZ cameras, that's what I'd recommend, and you can find a link to it in the description below. Again though, consider that for the cost of that camera, you could get a whole bunch of these Vixia R800s and put them all over your room and on stage and get shots that you couldn't get with one PTZ. So that's just my 2 cents on PTZ cameras. Hey, I've got a whole lot of new videos planned for this year. One of those is how to set up a switcher and do a multi-camera video stream. I'm excited about making these videos for you, and I really hope you'll find them useful. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and be sure and subscribe to my channel to see more of my videos. Until next time, bye.